Welcome. Scott here. After the next event, King of Destruction event, we will be embarking on a new era, the Shinryu era. Here is a short video briefing you on what to expect for the coming era. In this era we will be introduced a new weapon category called Force Weapons, or commonly known as FR. FR weapons allows you to activate your party force time where you receive significant damage bonus boosts. We will still have Chaos and Lufania fights though for other key rewards like burst tokens and Lufania armor tokens. In replacement of the Lufania plus fights, we will be gaining access to a new difficulty level called Shinryu, or level 300 difficulty fights. Compared to the previous difficulty, the bosses will have bigger HP pools and higher stats. They will also have their own force gauge. Let's start off by explaining the force gauge. At the top of the screen, you will see a gauge. The party gauge will only appears if you have someone or force empowerment passive. Bring a friend support with FR passive will also activate the gauge for your party. The meter of the gauge will build up as the battle progress. Whenever you reach a designated thresholds indicated by the markers, you will hear a chime. You can check the status of the gauge when you check your status screen via a long press on a character. We might be able to get the upgrades where we will see the percentages of the charges. When enemy gauges reaches a certain HP threshold, there will be special field effects. For example, the first two battles the boss will receive special bonuses at 40%, 60%, and 80% HP threshold. On the screen you can see two examples of the effects. Using the first Shinryu fight against the floating eye as an example. When the enemy force gauge is at least 40%, it will activate a 10% max HP poison aura. When the enemy force gauge is at least 60%, it will activate a 20% max HP poison aura. When the enemy force gauge is at least 80%, it will activate a 30% max HP poison aura. The charge time of the gauges will varies on battle to battle and depending on what are your character's current force level. Once the gauge reaches 100%, force time will be activated. Let's start off in explaining what happens when the enemy's force time is activated. The condition for force time activation is the gauge needs to be maxed. At the 100% mark, the boss will execute its force ability attack. Using the first Shinryu fight as an example, the boss will use Ultrasonics, which is an AoE HP that ignores HP nullification effects. It will also inflict paralysis for any character's HP that is below 50%. Most of the enemy's force ability is usually their strongest attack. So stand by your damage mitigation or evasion skills when you are about to activate them. After that, you will see the enemy activate their force time effect. The meter will be surrounded by a red aura and you will see a countdown timer starting from 3 appearing on the gauge. For the first Shinryu, the force time effect is if there is any ally whose HP is below 30%, the boss will use gaze, which will instantly KO the unit. To cancel the force time, you need to let the boss act 3 times. For every turn that the boss acts, the force time counter will be reduced by 1. Different fights have different force time effects. Do take note that the effect will still be active even during your summon or burst phase. You can freeze the enemy's force gauge or force time by activating your own force time, which I will explain in the next slide. Now let's focus on how to activate your party force time. To activate your party force time, you need to fulfill 2 of the following conditions. 1. Your party force gauge needs to be maxed. It is represented by the blue gauge on the right side of the screen. 2. To initiate the force time, you need to use the unit's force ability command. To have the force ability command, you need to have the FR weapon passive equipped. If the force weapon is MLB or Master Limited Break, you will gain access to 2 force ability uses and 10 turns of force time per activation on top of stronger effects. Once your gauge is maxed, you will notice that the force ability command will be usable. If the gauge isn't maxed, the command will be deactivated. Upon using the force ability, the unit will tag in their FR partner and execute the force ability attack. For the first FR unit, Kane, he will tag in his fellow Dragoon mate Arania for a combination attack. Upon activating your force time, the boss force gauge will be frozen. If you activate when the enemy force time is activated, you will also freeze the enemy's force time effect as long as your force time is active. Once force time is activated, you will see your force gauge glowing and a counter of 10 will appear on the gauge. It will be 5 if your FR weapon isn't MLB. As your party acts, the force time counter will reduce by 1. When force time is activated, you will gain tremendous HP damage bonuses to your attacks. If you have a burst unit in your party, it is best to activate the unit burst phase when there are around 6 to 7 force time turns left. This will amplify the damage output from the unit's burst phase. Do note that it is possible to hit 999% HP damage up bonuses in force time with the correct FR weapon. Knowing on how to abusing the force time holds the key to do astronomical amount to damage to the bosses. As long as you are able to do that, Shinryu fights will be a lot easier to handle. On this screen, here are some tips and strategies on how to maximize your damage during the force time. Different FR gear will have different force time conditions. Different conditions will give different FR damage bonuses. To maximize the effect, you need to build your party around the FR unit's condition. You can improve the charging speed of force gauge with charged up passives and the damage of the force time by upgrading the unit's force enhancement boards. While it is still possible to clear Shinryu fights without any FR or burst mode, it will be a big chore in doing so thanks to the massive HP pools that bosses have, which we will be facing in the future. For example, the first Shinryu fight bosses have 60 million HP each and you will need to clear the fight within 55 turns. This coming era will place a lot of emphasis on team building centered around the FR unit and units that help to build up the FR gauge. You won't need to pull for every FR. Upgrading a FR is pretty costly. You just need to strategize and pull for the one that suit your playstyle. Choose units with easy to fulfill conditions. When you are using your burst phase, here is some additional notes regards to the force time. 1. Every turn you taken in the burst phase will reduce the force time counter by 1. 2. You can use your force ability attack as one of the attacks in burst phase, but it won't reset the force time. Force time can easily amplify your damage output. Let's use Kane as an example. Kane's FR have the following 2 conditions. 1. When a party member does a ranged HP attack, you will gain damage bonus of 5%. 2. When a party member initiates a knockback or launch with all 3 characters participating, you will gain an additional 5% damage bonus. For the first condition you can just bring ranged units like Titus, Cloud, Fang, Laguna, or Freya. For the second condition, you can bring launchers like Selphie, Reigns, Kais, Lael, or Ramza. Do your research early and check what force weapon you want, as getting the FR weapon won't be enough to maximize the full damage potential that the FR weapon could bring. Do note that FR weapons will offer stronger bonuses as the game progresses. With the introduction of force weapons, we will also gain access to force enhancement boards. You can further speed up the charging of the force gauge and further amplify the damage bonuses with upgrading your unit's force empowerment passives with enhancement points and force stones or force shards. On the unit's passive status screen you will see force level counter level. The maximum level is 30. It will take a total of 15,000 enhancement points and 3 force stones, or 60 force shards equivalent, to reach the max level of 30. To access to force level 11, you need 20 force shards or 1 force stone with 300 enhancement points. To access to force level 21, you need 40 force shards or 2 force stones with 300 enhancement points. To get more force shards or force stones, you can get it from the event shop, Chocobo panels, or clearing the Shinryu stage. Clearing a Shinryu stage will nav your 20 force shards. MLB a FR weapon will gives 2 force stones. When you check on the status screen, you can see the unit's force level. On the screen, you will see a table of the key passive upgrades that you will get at each force level. For level 3, 13, and 23, you get to upgrade the force gauge charge speed by 15% each per level, giving you a maximum of 45% for the character at force level 23. At level 8, 18, and 28, you will get HP damage bonuses during force time. This will give you an additional 1% per level upgrade. For every level upgrade that are multiple of 5, for example level 5 or 10, you can increase brave damage and HP damage limits cap for the unit's standard command abilities. For units whose skills doesn't do HP damage, upgrading force level will add additional boost to force gauge charging. For other levels, they will give stats boost to the character like your standard crystal or character enhancement board passives. Do note that the bonuses varies from character to character. You need a total of 90 CP to house all force level related passives. It will also take 20 CP to equip a FR passive for a character with burst equipment. Now let's focus on how to upgrade your force weapon. To MLB a force weapon, you need to invest 12 high power stones where you need 3 high power stones per limit. A high power stones requires you to exchange 20 power stones in the exchange shop. In short, you need 240 power stones to fully MLB a force weapon. As mentioned earlier, MLB a force weapon will nav you 2 force stones where you can use it upgrade your unit's force level. The force weapon offers the third highest stats boost after burst plus and ultima weapons. You shouldn't never consider using a FR weapon unless it is fully MLB. Here is the reason why. For the first limit break, you will gain an additional use of force ability. For the second limit break, you will upgrade the force time damage bonus and a force gauge refund when the force time ends. For the third and final limit break, you will increase the duration of force time from 5 turns to 10 turns. It will also improve the damage bonuses you received in the force time. You can see that it is very costly to upgrade a force weapon. It will take 400 G tokens or 100k gems to pity a FR weapon. You don't need to get all FR weapons to clear all content. Depending on your res hours, try to target 1 or 2 FR weapons per month and you should be fine. Building your team comps around a FR unit along with LD units capable of handling the boss mechanics will hold the key whether you can clear the upcoming Shinryu difficulty boss fights. With this, I have come to the end of this quick introduction guide to upcoming era. If you like the video, please give a like. Please subscribe to my channel for future gaming content. See you for the upcoming event.